Right there. All right, found that.
Okay, you are good to go, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is 7 p.m. and tonight is the 2069th meeting of the City of College Place City Council electronic City Council meeting. So will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes, Councilmember Bobbitt,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Nyhagen,
Present.
Councilmember Selby,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman,
Present.
Councilmember Trope.
Present.
Mayor Hernandez is present. We also have City Attorney Colwell, City Administrator Rizzatello, Finance Director Brian Carlton, Public Works Director Paul Hartwig, Police Chief Troy Tamaris, HR Manager Sean Doring, myself, City Clerk, and Deputy Clerk Holm. We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here again. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Father, we're thankful that we can be in where it's warm. Thank you very much. Bless our meeting, that we will do the business of the city according to your will. And again, I thank you for our wonderful staff, and I ask a blessing for those that are with this virus, Lord, that you will bless them. And I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. All right, it is now time for public comment. Do we have anyone requesting to speak?
No one made arrangements, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to the consent agenda, consisting of the agenda for today, February 23rd, 2021, and the council minutes from February 9th, 2021. Are there any items anyone of the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda at this time? Okay, seeing none, do we?
And I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you. Let's move on along. We have presentations. We have 3 of them tonight. So the first one is an update on the city snow removal activities by Mr. Hartwig.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Over the last week, it has been, as probably most of you have felt, kind of frustrating with what took place. We had a lot of snow. I don't remember this much snow in this short of a time gap in my 40 years. But so we had up to 20 inches of snow in the 3 to 4 day period there. It made it very difficult for us to keep up. With the priority for plowing is always your arterials. Doing residential streets ahead of arterials doesn't make much sense, because you got to get, they don't have anywhere to go. So our priorities are arterials. So College Avenue, Rose, Larch, C Street, 12th Street to Morrison, Lamperti, Meadowbrook, 4th and Whitman. Then we would hit the Ash, Davis, and Date and Bade areas before we even get to residentials. So our problem this time was that we would get done with, as we were doing the arterials, we'd get done, and then we'd find out we'd have to do them right after that and go for it again. To give you a little idea on the equipment that we use, we have the grader that has the gate. We have a dump truck with a plow that was out. We have a backhoe with a plow that was out. Then we have a backhoe, and a John Deere tractor. That's our snow equipment. The grader has a gate that allows us to clear driveways, intersections, and so forth. The other two blades, the other two plows do not have that. So when we go out with those, you have to almost follow that with the backhoe or the John Deere tractor, so that we can clear, at least get the intersections cleared. We have a crew of about 6 or 7 people that go out on this, and you can see with our equipment, each person is on that. So we can't really do a lot of shift work. So I had some people that were out there 16 hours a day, and I can't have them go more than that. If we try to go a 24-hour shift with our people, we're going to run into real problems of potential conflicts with vehicles and so forth, because they're just tired, they're snow blind and all that type of stuff. And I don't want to make excuses. I'm just telling you the way it is, okay? We had around 140 hours of overtime. I was out for 16 to 20 hours overseeing the street work. At times we had all the equipment rolling, like I said. The volume of snow didn't allow us to get off the arterials for any sustained amount of time. The quantity and weight of the snow, especially the later ones, made it difficult, if not impossible, for even the grader to push it with the gate down to clear the intersections and so forth. And that's why you would see, as you approach the intersection, a lot of deep slush that really made it difficult to get through that intersection, and a lot of vehicles got stuck there. We understand the importance of trying to clear roads, and we've got a plan to do it. We were trying to live with that plan. It was just coming down too fast and too much all at one time. Fortunately, I can speak for my neighborhood. We had a lot of people that were out with vehicles. I had 2 neighbors that were out with their tractors and so forth, trying to help out with the local areas. Homeowners associations were doing some stuff. Sunset Villa had somebody out there to plow their streets because we couldn't get to them and so forth. So I really appreciate that. It was a difficult year. That's, in my 40 years, I haven't had one like this that we weren't able to keep up. And then we tried to get out also with salt and sand, and that got delayed as well because we're on all our equipment to plow. So it was frustrating, and I'm sure you were frustrated, and you had people that commented that they were frustrated. But we did the best we could. I'm proud of my crew. I have no complaints on them. They did their best, and fortunately, it's over now. But I'd entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Hardwick? Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
Oh, Paul, I agree, and I support you. What wonderful guys in your crew, and I know by about day 3 or 4, you had that, what would you call it, the 1,000-yard stare or something like that, you know. I guess some observations of mine and others, and correct me, Paul, if I'm wrong, because what do I know, you know, as far as snow removal. But the Monday morning after the big snowfall, I drove into Walla Walla. I went down 12th Street. So from College Avenue all the way down to Myra and into Walla Walla, turned around and came back a few minutes later, ended up on Larch and 4th Street and on Main Street. So this was the Monday after the big snowfall. My impression was that the main arterials had not been plowed as of Monday. Is that incorrect?
No, well, they were plowed probably 2 times before that, and then we were out that Monday. You know, this time 12th Street was pretty much the last one to get taken care of. we were busy with College Avenue and Rose, Larch and C, the commercial areas, and then we had to deal with schools as well as we could. And this time 12th Street didn't get the attention early, like we normally try to do, because that's a very busy route for commercial traffic going into Walla Walla and back out.
Thanks, Paul.
Councilmember Nyhagen or
It was-
Bobbitt?
It was, I just wanted to make a comment to Paul and thank him and his team for all the hard work. I so much appreciate. I know myself personally went out and dug my driveway out 3 times of about 6 inches of snow and didn't go anywhere. And then I do remember that they did come and scrape birch, but by that evening it had turned into slush and it was almost, I almost got stuck a couple places there. But I understand the hard work that our city crew went to do what they did, keeping arterials clear. And just want so much to thank Paul and his team. And if Paul could pass that on to the rest of the crew, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I will. You know, and the frustrating thing was, you know, it would warm up enough to soften the snow. Then you'd get ruts with ice. And then when we come in to plow, we'll get the slush off, and you'll have somewhere we can get to the road, and others where you got, you know, 6 inches of ice, and you're like you're four-wheeling, and it was really frustrating trying to get through that.
Okay, we have Councilmember Selby and then followed by Councilmember Cleveland.
I want to echo some of what Councilmember Bobbitt said, with thanks to you and your crew. Most of the people that I talked to were pretty understanding because they've been doing the same thing. They're out there shoveling out and then, yay, I'm done. And then it's all to do over again. And part of me wishes that, you know, we could have given you what you needed to deal with this storm. But I also think staffing up and getting equipment for a once in 40 years thing is not a good use of our funds. So I think we're going to have to explain to people that, you know, when something really unusual happens, you have to be patient and deal with it. So I really appreciate you and your crews. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo our appreciation of all your hard work. You know, I know in all things, not just snow removal, you guys are pretty routinely squeeze blood from stones. And, you know, I'm not sure the blood is coming so much from the stones as it is your own hands because you're working so hard. And I just want to recognize how unusual this storm was. I've lived here my whole life and haven't seen anything like it either. Although I think your experience serving the city is actually longer than my lifespan, but just, it was real unusual. So much snow come down all at once. A lot of hard work.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's hope it doesn't happen again for a long time.
Hear, hear.
And we're going to try to, well, I say we're, but I think Paul and Mike are the one that are going to be working on it. Try to send a communication, maybe try to get something in our newsletter, and then we can put it on our Facebook, explaining to the community just what Paul explained, our limitations, the hard work everybody put into it, our appreciation for the patients. I don't know if many of you noticed, you know, Mike was trying to provide constant updates every day of where the snow plowing is at or what the progress has been, to try to keep some communication open. You know, it's interesting, you know, Mike would put the snow update on and he'd put it on the neighborhood app, and then somebody would ask a question, does anybody know when College Place is going to be plowing? You know, and it's like, it's right there. But so hopefully with putting something in the newsletter and then again following it up again on our social media, we'll hopefully the community will understand what the Public Works team went through and why it happened that way. And, you know, and again, it would have been nice. I'm sure the team would have loved an actual snow plow, but for that once every 40 years, you're right. Councilmember Peterson would like to speak again.
Well, yeah. I think I've lived out here my entire life, and I've seen storms bigger than this. Yeah, I think it begs the question, Paul. We may have two graders in the future. Are you going to hang on to the old one, when we get the new one? What are your thoughts?
Okay, we did receive the new grader after the snowfall. So that one is a lot larger. It's more power, not more horsepower. So that's good. Mike and I were talking about, we did have the council surplus the old grader. We have talked about keeping that, just keeping it in case, but the concern there would be is we wouldn't be using it, and it would just be sitting for a year, maybe even more, depending on how much snow happens. And an engine sitting with the oil in the bottom of the deal, not in, is really difficult, hard on the equipment. So we're still talking about that. We have discussed that. But I think the new grader with its power and so forth and a larger blade will be a significant help in the future as well.
Yeah, and I guess thanks, Paul. And I think I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I guess it's kind of like these 100-year floods that start happening every 15 or 20 years. I think we need to be. I don't know if we need to maybe have arrangements to contract out with others to come help in times of emergency, or whether we need to look at some capital expenditures, not huge capital expenditures, but something we could do to help with some attachments or some additional equipment that isn't budget breaking, but that's something we could have for when these 40-year snows start happening every 5 or 6 years or something. We don't know. Right. We don't know, but I think it might be. We had quite a February last year too, if we all recall. So I don't know if the weather's changing or what's going on, but I would just entertain maybe into the future, Paul, us discussing how to maybe get a little bit more robust as far as equipment for you or whatever your needs might be, on the fringe. So anyway.
Yeah, we're looking at exploring if we can get gates for the plow with the on the backhoe and the gate for the plow on the dump truck, and then we're scheduled to buy a Stellar, which is like that runs our salt machine, and next year, and we're looking to see what we can do as far as getting a plow package for that as well, and then we can follow that right behind with the sand salt mixture as well. So that'll help. So, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul.
I'm going to agree with Councilmember Peterson. If we need to consider looking at better equipment and making sure that the public works has what they need in order to get this and not feel so beat down by the community and by us, I think we truly need to start considering it and looking into it. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I understood in an email that because you were working the equipment so hard that there were some hoses or belts that ended up failing.
Yeah, the dump truck with the plow that lost its fan belt. We've had a hose break on the backhoe, which takes us out. Whoever's working on that is down until the mechanic gets there to get that fixed and so forth. But yeah, we had 2 or 3 of those that took us out for a few hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
But that's not uncommon in when you're working equipment extremely hard and 24 hours a day, basically. That just happens. So.
Sure. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments or discussions regarding the snow removal?
Just a comment from Councilmember Jerry. I have a better appreciation for my neighbor. He was out there hand shoveling.
I heard. Trying to keep up with ahead of the snow. All right. Thank you very much, Paul. Please again give your team our deepest appreciation.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is update on the COVID-19 pandemic, and Mr. Rizzatello and City Clerk Neisel is going to present on that.
We're actually with Chief Damaris next.
Okay, we're going to have the 2020 Police Department Annual Report by Chief Damaris. My apologies, Chief.
No problem. All right, can everybody see my presentation there?
Yes.
All right, good to go. Well, I get to do one of the things I love doing, and that is talking about the men and women of the College Place Police Department, all the hard work that they do. What an incredible year. This is just a short presentation of our annual report. You should all have a copy of the full annual report in its entirety. That would include our vision, mission, values, and goals, and also a message from the chief. So please take an opportunity to read through that. That'd be great. So we will get started here. So the first one we're looking at is our org chart. That is, for the first time since I've been here, we are completely full. All of our vacancies are completely full. So that is fantastic news. And we now have 11 officers, 2 sergeants, 1 reservist, a special enforcement officer, and 3 clerks. So pretty exciting. Here's 2 of our new employees. Officer Chris Williams is on his FTO right now. He's scheduled to be completed with training in May. He'll be commissioned right around the 1st of May, and we're really excited for Chris. He's doing a fantastic job for us. And our new clerk, Andrea St. Clair, she started here also in January, and she's our new full-time clerk, and Brielle took the part-time position. So pretty exciting, and they're both just doing great. And they're young and make me feel old. So let's start with our support services slide here. And first thing I wanted to point out is Mary Ann down there in the corner of the screen there, Mary Ann Barr, our record supervisor. She is amazing. She's pulled all this data for me. We've worked together, but she's done all the really heavy lifting on pulling this data. We use a program called New World, and it is not the easiest program to pull data out of. It's a little antiquated, but she works on that every year, and sometimes we have to actually do some hand counting as well. So just shout out to Mary Ann for that. But that's our clerk staff down below. And then if you look at the numbers up there, 2020 numbers, and I also put 2019 in there for a comparison. Not a big surprise. We're down in every category: number of fingerprints, CPL, what's concealed pistol license permits, public disclosure processed, dog licenses sold. All that's down because of COVID. You're going to see a theme on a lot of this throughout this presentation. Obviously, when we closed down the office there and people didn't have as easy access to us, that definitely had an impact on a lot of these numbers. Very exciting though. We now have dog licenses that you can purchase online now with the new programs that we have in place. So that and other things are available online, which will make it easier for people to get access to as we move forward embracing technology. Here's a slide of our patrol. So our arrests are down almost 16%. Not a big surprise. It's something to keep in mind too is early on in March when we went to the emergency orders, and we basically told our officers not to stop cars and not to be proactive. It was mostly just reactive. And we did that for a good couple months, maybe a little over 2 months, until we learned, until we had better equipment, personal protective equipment, and we had some training on how to protect ourselves from the COVID virus. And then we were able to actually slowly start to be more proactive. So cases are down. The incidents are up just slightly, almost equal from last year. So incidents would be any call for service. That could be someone who is blocking a roadway, a theft, a burglary, a domestic violence, any of those kind of things. Anytime we have an incident, that's what that number is. So tickets written were 588. And then traffic stops down a little bit too, down 33%. Again, we went a couple months. Had we not had those 2 months plus of basically kind of pulling back and taking a step back, I really do believe our numbers would be exceeding last year's numbers, especially as we increase our staffing. Next year, I'm pretty excited for next year. I think we'll have a really good year. And at any time, if you have any questions on any of these, please just let me know. Investigations, this is Detective Fortin, and he's been very busy. You can see by the numbers, he's up significantly on a lot of things. You know, we had that year of training in 2019. He's really hitting the ground running this year. And so what Brian does is he takes on more complex cases. Typically they're felony cases. And we've had a lot of those this year. And Brian has not only taken on those cases, but he's cleared a significant amount of them as well, which is really exciting. So he's doing a great job on that and sending those cases off to the prosecutor's office. And a lot of what he does as well is, you know, he's got some more experience in advanced training and interviewing, and he does in writing search warrants. So he does help the officers with their cases. And I love his approach because he shows people, or he doesn't just do it for them, he makes them do it, but he kind of works alongside them so that the officers are learning these skills as they go, which is really a great thing to see the mentoring amongst our peers. So it's really good stuff. Officer Langlois and our school resource officer, obviously with COVID, he's been working the road more than less in the school, more on the road and helping out with that. But nonetheless, he still had a lot of activity, not just, he kind of had to reinvent himself a little bit this year. You know, he was helping out with some online stuff, helping to teach some classes. He worked with some staff and checked on some students who were, I don't want to, I guess truancy would still be the term because they just, you know, just kind of some welfare checks on some kids that kids were having a hard time socially isolated, or maybe they weren't getting online and staying involved in school. So he helped with that and had some Zoom meetings with kids. And he just did a really good job trying to do his very best to be a good school resource officer during this COVID crisis with kids learning from home. So very challenging year, and he's done a fantastic job. He's also very excited to have the kids back in school. So that's a great thing. I'm sure you agree. Here's some data from our special enforcement officer. So last year was our first time we got to look at some numbers, and then this year they're down in some areas, which we expected. You know, I think 2018, 2019, when the position was new, there was a lot of code enforcement that had to have been done in the city. And the majority of the code enforcement we do, as you know, we gain compliance just through communication without enforcement, which is fantastic. So code enforcement investigations are down considerably, which we expected, just because the community's getting behind it. And I think that enforcement has made a difference. I really do. Hopefully you've seen that as well. Animal calls. I asked Ron today, I said, hey, Ron, why are the animal calls up so much? And he says, Chief, I don't know. So, but they are up, and then parking violations are up. And Ron mentioned that a lot of the parking violations that we have are, we have an ordinance. If you have expired plates or tabs, you cannot park on city streets. So we have a lot of those types of calls. And one thought is because of COVID and people either not working or working from home, you see more cars in the city streets. There could potentially even be some issues where people are having a hard time paying their tabs. So, but we did have a lot of contacts with people with expired plates, and expired tabs. Okay, so this slide makes me really proud. This is our professional standards slide, basically internal affairs. So if you get a complaint against an employee, this is where they would show up in this slide. So in 2020, I don't know if you can see all that to the right there. My slide shows it covered by everybody's faces. So if you look at 2020, we had one complaint and we had one IA. So, and it was a complaint on behalf of the department. We had one, someone posted on Facebook a picture of an officer. They claimed he was sleeping. We immediately did an internal investigation on that. The person who posted the image would not cooperate with us. So therefore, it's not sustained. So basically, if you look at the titles to the left, when the investigation discloses that there is insufficient evidence to sustain the complaint or fully exonerate the member. So, but when we get these kind of complaints, when you see all these things through the years, it could be lost equipment. It could be a complaint of a person who an officer had contact with on courtesy. It could be a complaint of vehicle operation, but majority of these complaints are issued by the department where we are holding people accountable to our policies. So, but we're really excited to see the trend over the last 4 years or last 5 years, really, just really get down to nothing. So in 2016, they had 9 investigations. And then this year we had 1. Pretty exciting. Okay, this is our crime and traffic statistics. So these are some of the major categories that we like to track and that we really focus on for our operations plan. Incidentally, our 2021 operations plan has been updated, and that is also should be in your packets to review at your leisure. So there's some good things and some bad things here. If you look at the 2020 in green, you're going to notice the numbers that coincide with the categories. So for instance, the first one's burglaries. We had 41 burglaries last year. So burglaries are when someone goes into another person's home and attempts to steal items. Usually it's theft. A burglary could also be multiple theft thirds. If you get 2 or more theft thirds, correct me if I'm wrong, Ring, then you can be charged with burglary, say like at Walmart. So it becomes a felony. And then thefts are down, which is good news. Another good thing is collisions were down this year. So it's all right around in the 80s there over the last 3 years. But with our emphasis on traffic safety, I think that's making a difference in our community, and the officers are doing a fantastic job and ensuring that or working towards improving the streets and sidewalks in our community. So DUI numbers are down a little bit, and that trend is statewide. We think that a lot of the quarantining, people staying at home, has made a big difference with restaurants being closed and bars being closed. But nonetheless, there were still 18 impaired drivers apprehended by our officers. And I would say probably 50% of those are drug use, and the other half are alcohol. So what you're commonly seeing today is what they call poly drugs. That is a combination of alcohol and or drugs. One of the statistics we're watching really closely is the narcotics arrests are up significantly. So 68% there, you can see. We have a lot of drugs in our community, and our officers are out there being proactive and making contacts and making arrests. And so that is something that we're really wanting to communicate with our community, that it's out there, and have parents talking to their kids and just making those positive choices in their lives. And I'll also mention too that just really quickly, we have a new diversion program, law enforcement assisted diversion program too. So a lot of these types of cases are great, great cases to be referrals for the diversion program. So, and then we've mentioned this before on another meeting, and I think that hopefully that we can get some of these people some help. So that'd be a good thing. As you know, we already talked about traffic stops are down just a little bit, but the guys are still doing a great job. Warrant apprehensions are up, are still in the 200s, are down from last year, but they're still in the 200s. This is a frustration of ours because a lot of these warrants are suspended tickets, and people just being arrested multiple times over and over and over again. So we're trying to work with the courts to minimize that a little bit. So because we keep arresting the same people for the same warrants. Motor vehicle thefts are exactly the same as last year, but still down from 2018. So we're pretty happy about that. Vehicle prowls are down significantly. We do believe a lot of that has to do with the university being out for a while and people going to school from home online. Makes a big difference. when there's not as many vehicles out there to prowl. And shoplifting is up and domestic violence is down. So we're really excited about that. I know that right when COVID started, we were really concerned about people being on quarantine and having DVs be up, but they've actually gone down. So that is fantastic news. Other assaults, fights, things like that have gone up, and we're kind of looking at that because that is a huge increase. So again, kids and people being at home, maybe causing some stress and frustration. So these are some of our significant accomplishments, and we're really proud. You know, it was a challenging year in so many ways, with social injustice concerns and in social distancing and COVID and all these different things that have happened, but we had a lot of great things happen this year too. And we're really proud of the men and women of our department. Obviously, the biggest one that we're really proud about is we received our accreditation this year during a very difficult time. So a significant accomplishment for our department. We're really excited about that. We still managed to do some really cool things with cops and kids. It looked different this year. Obviously, we tried to do as many things as we could while staying safe. We did the National Night Out Parade, which was a huge success. We also partnered with the city, and we did the city parade where we went through neighborhoods with the fire department and Paul's guys in Public Works. And I just really think that Lisa and her team are doing a fantastic job of making these things happen. Caroline, with all the work that she's doing, and we're just really proud and happy to be part of that. So we'll continue to partner with the city. So, and then we have just some fun photos from throughout the year. Photos, the National Night Out Parade Awards, where citizens were getting involved. You can see the cops and kids. We had a trunk or treat over in Walla Walla that we were invited to, and just the guys and everybody's just kind of pitching in. They're just so eager to be involved and serve our community. So just had to throw a few of those pictures in there. So, but that is it. If any of you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Councilmember Trope.
Yeah, quick one, Troy. At the school, we've been talking about this, trying to understand the impact of COVID on our community. And one of the things I'd heard, you know, I guess you'd say apocryphal information, was that gang activity is up significantly. Is that something you guys are seeing as well?
Yeah, that's a great observation. Absolutely, it is. You may have noticed here over January, early February, the city had a lot of there was a lot of recruiting going on in the gangs, and there was a lot of tagging that was occurring. You know, we partnered with Crime Watch, and we had volunteers from Life Church and some other volunteers go and cover up all the graffiti. So we've seen some really cool things that way. But yeah, definitely we're having a big increase in gang activity. So that is definitely something we're looking at.
Councilmember Selby.
Thanks for this report, Chief. I was curious on the narcotics. Do you think there's actually more usage, or do you think we're doing a better job of finding it?
I personally believe we're doing a better job of finding it. So having staffing up, the officers are able to be more proactive. And I definitely think that they're doing a better job of detecting it. And we've increased training in that area. But you know, it's always about safety. So when you're by yourself, you're not as proactive. And when you have other officers for backup, you're able to be more proactive. And I really do believe with your support in staffing our people, that it's made a big difference in our community for safety. And drug activity and arrests is a big part of that. It's pretty obvious.
Thank you. That was my impression as well, but I wanted to get your read on it. So thank you. I do think seeing the full officer complement is really helping.
It's making a big difference.
Councilmember Peterson.
Oh, Chief, I was somewhat humorous when I saw well, it's not humorous, let me back up, but the animal control calls up. I was remembering all of the programs I've watched over this last year of pets, people that are at home, that ownership is just skyrocketed. Airplanes flying in animals to Seattle, Portland, Missoula, and I think even Walla Walla in some cases. So we've been never the future holds for that. I'm so glad we have a strong enforcement officer there, and we'll see where that goes. And who knows, this could be unrelated to Walla Walla completely. But everything I'm reading is that people got bored and went out and started buying pets, and yeah.
Yeah, so Officer Nordman and I were talking about this morning. We're just a little bit, that makes sense. I hadn't read that article and I didn't know that. So that's good. I'll share that with Ron, but definitely we're getting more animals loose and it's been keeping him busy.
Yeah, right.
Finance director. Because didn't he just recently get a dog? Any other questions for Chief Damaris? Or comments, compliments? Well, I'm sure there's plenty of compliments, but all right. Oh, somebody gets, okay, Chief Damaris, thank you very much. That was an excellent report, very well put together. So it looks great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And of course, thank your team as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, now it's time to talk about COVID with Mike and Lisa.
Okay, thank you. As you know, whenever there's any changes with the region going into different phases or different protocols, I try to give a presentation on what's happening and what it looks like going forward. So with that, we'll enter the PowerPoint presentation I made for this. A lot of the data within this is from last week when it was compiled. So if you go on a website, some numbers may change from that time. Next slide. Okay, so one of the things that I like doing is posting the data metrics because the state has a decent open data website, as does Esri Business Analyst, just going over status reports both from the county level and then at the state level. At the time when this data was pulled last week, you could see a confirmed cases at the county level was 4,600. State level, 330,000. Number of cases in 14 days. You can see in general it's been on the decline, but it's still there. Next slide. So the county has a pretty good data website. It's called covidwwc.com. That website is shared on our social media. They've been running appointments through it. And there's just general information about COVID on there and the local response to it. So you could see here's the local case counts from the duration of this. So City of Walla Walla is north of 3,500 cases, followed by College Place at 575 cases, and then Burbank, Wallula area, and then Prescott. I mean, relative as percentage of population, and especially like at other incorporated areas, we're doing pretty good. As you can see by the graph to the left, the lion's share of the cases have been in the 20 to 39 age group, followed by 40 to 59 age group. And this is all from the county website that is maintained. Next slide. Okay, this is a data visualization from just the state level. In fact, 330,000 cases, 47 north of 4,700 deaths in the state. And then you can see the breakout about population and no health insurance, and then the various population breakouts. Next slide. Now, these are the data metrics that guide essentially the regions moving forward or backward. And as you may recall, This deviates quite a bit from the previous plan, the Safe Start Washington. Now with the Healthy Washington plan, it's no longer county by county opening, but it's based on a region or the EMS district. So in our case, we're in South Central, and that is comprised of Kittitas, Yakima, Benton, Franklin, Walla Walla, and Columbia County. Now, I'm going to get into it in a little bit, but the last time there was an announcement of reopening phases for a little while there, it looked like our region was going to be held in phase 1. And a lot of that had to do essentially with ICU bed occupancy. There was some differences in how the hospitals collect the data. As you can see here, you can essentially stay at phase 2 with satisfying 3 of the 4 metrics. And then the light blue means you're decreasing or low, medium blue is flattening, and dark blue is increasing or high. So for us in South Central region, the trending 14-day rate of new COVID per 100,000, that was negative 41%. Hospital admissions per 100,000, negative 19%. The average 7-day percent occupancy of the ICU staff beds was at 86%. That data point in general for our region is a bit hard to get to, just because, like for instance, out in Yakima County, over the last couple of years, they've had some hospital closures. So they actually have a higher percentage of their beds that are occupied. So that's harder to get to. The one data point where we're still bad on is the 7-day percent positive COVID-19 rate, and that's at 14%, and they're looking for regions to be below the 10%. Next slide. So this one gets a little bit into the whole debacle of when we were in phase 1 for a brief time period when everyone else went into phase 2. So February 11th, the governor reported all the regions except ours to move to phase 2. The County Department of Health and Providence and a variety of host of folks connected to Unified Command. And Unified Command is basically a Zoom meeting that's held between the VA, Providence, the cities, the county, the state, and then our legislative delegations, both federal and state, to work through issues having to do with COVID. And basically, it was discovered that there was an error in some of the reporting data. So Department of Health has a news release. Also, the County Commissioner's Office, in concert with Providence, issued a memo as well detailing it. They worked together with the governor's office, and we were able to get opened up and moved to phase 2 on Valentine's Day. By February 18th, that perfect storm memo was released by Walla Walla and Yakima counties detailing the situation. Because again, I think this situation shows, I would say, the flaw in the regional approach, because it seemed to be a pretty agreed upon point in Unified Command was that this data point we probably could have identified sooner if it was still the county by county approach, but with all the data being aggregated across 8 counties, that tends to mask deviations. So it does cause problems when analyzing that data. Next slide. So what does phase 2 mean? So there's a lot of confusion here because the previous plan, that Safe Start, had 4 phases. This plan, as of right now, has 2 phases with more phases promised, but nothing in the future phases as of yet. This infographic was put together by Benton Franklin Health. I think there are other differences, but these are the key salient points of ones that people want to know about. Indoor dining. So in the previous phase, it was just essentially taking out food, or if there was a restaurant that had essentially garage doors that you could open up, or open up doors, windows, like for instance, Hop Thief did that. They could have indoor dining that way, but if you didn't have the ability to do that, it was pretty much takeout only. Now we're at a 25% capacity. Indoor fitness and entertainment, same thing, 25% capacity. And again, that's the capacity that's set essentially by the building official and fire marshal. So those placards you see on public rooms, it's 25% of whatever that says. Home gatherings, the previous phase said really no people outside your immediate household. In this case, it goes beyond that now. So indoor 5 people, outdoor 15 or 2 households. Weddings or funerals, 25% cap, and then outdoor entertainment. Now it says groups of 15 or 2 households per group, maximum 200 people. In the earlier plans, the entertainment was pretty much banned. This plan is you go to phase 2, entertainment is once again allowed outside and then in. Next slide. I just attached this. These are just some recent CDC guidance. We have this in the slide, but then the city also maintains a COVID-19 response website. There's a logo on the main page is cpwa.us, and then people can click on it, and it just aggregates data from the state, the county, CDC, everyone. And then I try to do videos about every 2 weeks to go over some of the key changes regarding to the state, the local, county COVID response. So these are some infographics over recent trends from CDC. Next slide. Vaccinations. So now we are getting into vaccination phase of this pandemic response. So you can see the vaccination statistics statewide as well as county. I will say locally, we are actually doing really good getting the vaccines out. So there's 2 groups that now can get it. So 1A, Tier 1 and Tier 2, which is high-risk healthcare workers, high-risk first responders, long-term care residents, and all other workers in healthcare settings. And then 1B, Tier 1, which is all people 65 years or older, all people 50 years or older in multi-generational households. What we're starting to see is that we're so, the county in general is so good at getting the vaccinations out and partnering with everyone, that of the folks who want the shots, in these groups, they're actually starting to run out of folks where there's additional appointments available. So there has been some discussion and push locally where, you know, if a region is doing good enough, there should be some local decision points about maybe moving to further into additional phases. The situation is that the governor's office and State Department of Health is taking a very strong-handed approach to it, where in essence, if a county is ahead, they basically want counties ahead to hold off and let the other counties catch up before moving to the additional phase, which seems to be a little counterintuitive, but that's how they're directing that. Because if you follow news media, there's been stories, for instance, in Whitman County, where they wanted to vaccinate all teachers, and then the governor's office actually threatened to withhold vaccination doses to Whitman County. So during our unified command meetings, we're trying to have that dialogue with the governor's office to be a little more flexible, and also to appreciate, recognize the success of the counties that are running these sites efficiently, and then bolster that. Next slide. As you can see here, this is the current graph and chart of basically the various phases for the vaccinations, as you can see. So they have this going all the way out through summer and fall. So next one will be 1B tier 2, so high risk critical workers, 50 years or older. And then 1B tier 3, which is 16 years or older with 2 comorbidities. And then 1B tier 4, high risk critical workers, congregate settings, things of that sort. So that is the chart they have right now on that. Next slide. So get to the vaccination site without, it's good, yeah. So there's really two main vaccination sites that regional residents can choose to go to. One is the one at Walla County, which is at the fairgrounds. And the announcements are made, I would say, very suddenly because the communication about when doses are available, especially coupled with the fact that deliveries on the vaccination doses were held up for a bit because of the snowstorms. So we try to get out the information as quick as we can, but it just comes out suddenly. So we get it on social media, the reader board out front, and then the website. So if you want to go to the Walla County Fairground website, you can typically do that through that covidwwc.com. The other key thing is that, as I said, they were so successful at getting appointments at this that they were running out of essentially folks who wanted the shot in those key groups to get in for appointments. What we're starting to find is that there is a big segment of the population that doesn't have internet service. So Walla County Department of Community Health did establish a phone number where they will make the appointment for you, for residents that don't have access to the internet. So we've shared that on our electronic reader board out front of City Hall. And then Department of Health is trying to get sandwich boards and other information modes out there to get this information out. Next slide. The other regional site, because all the EMS functions in Southeast Washington are like in a Southeast Interagency Coordinating Group, is for a Southeast one, the regional vaccination site that the state is running is actually over at the Benton County Fairgrounds. To get the updates on that site, it seems that all of those posts are being made actually on the Facebook page for the Southeast Washington Interagency Incident Management Team. That's where the information is for appointments at this site, because originally they were just trying to screen people at that central vaccination site, and then it turned into a bit of a mess. So they're requiring the folks that want to get vaccinated here register at the prepmed.doh.wa.gov. And a lot of the vaccination doses are going there because the state has established key regional locations that they're running to try to get the vaccination numbers up. So they're at Spokane Arena, Benton County Fairgrounds, out of Clark County, and then the Town Country Center over in Wenatchee. And then they also have a hotline phone number as well to make appointments. Next slide. So touch over some other topics. The COVID response website the city has, and we try to update it as soon as new information comes out, which seems to be all the time, is at that COVID-19 link. The city does film little update videos as far as where our cases are at, key changes in the tiers, and all of that, and that's on the city's YouTube channel. The utility and rental assistance, that goes through Blue Mountain Action Council. they've spent all of the funds that the city awarded to them through that state COVID grant. However, there is additional monies now moving at the state level. There was a legislative bill passed, and there's another one moving through the federal level where I would expect there'll be additional money coming down soon, both state and federally, to help with utility and rental assistance through Blue Mountain Action Council. And then also there's guidance for businesses and workers. The state's updating that all the time. So I direct a lot of the businesses that give me a call at that webpage. The other thing is that they are going to do another round of Working Washington small business grants to try to help out the small businesses. The governor made the announcement about a week and a half ago. We're still awaiting word about how it'll be dispersed. In the initial press conference, he mentioned State Department of Commerce. A lot of us on Unified Command are trying to push them to just do regional contracts with the local associate development organization, which in our case would be the port. Because when the port did it, which was the second round, locally we were able to get out money in like 2 weeks. The other times when State Department of Commerce ran this, it took them about 8 weeks to get the money out, which if you're in a crisis as a small business, that may be too late. So we're trying to push them to funnel money through the ADOs. So that is the key stuff from a general city operational business standpoint. However, as you know, there's a lot of information about meetings for as city council, advisory commissions, and just a lot of things with OPMA and other stuff that is going on through this pandemic. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa.
Do you want to offer to answer any questions on your part of it prior to me getting started, or?
Yeah, good idea. There are a number of slides. So does anyone have any questions on what I've gone over thus far?
Mike, I have a quick question regarding the information for the vaccinations. Do we have room on our newsletters to put the websites and phone numbers?
We do have the information. I would just put the websites and phone numbers because the problem is the dates, times, and how they're doing it changes so frequently. There's no way to forecast that.
Yeah, okay. At least that general information to refer them to, that would probably be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mike? All right, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, so as you all know, the OPMA rules and the meeting rules and everything have been changing pretty rapidly throughout this whole pandemic. As of February 1st, some new revised guidance was provided to us for once we interface to. I've got some information on the next few slides for how we can potentially have meetings in person related to meetings that are OPMA or PRA rules that are subject to those rules. As far as like general business meetings, the rules are less stringent because there are less of the regulations that we have to meet. But as far as the current status, I've been working really closely with the Washington Association of Municipal Clerks, asking advice from MRSC, the Attorney General's office. And just so you know, I do have some close contacts through WMCA, the Municipal Clerks Association. Some of the larger cities who have on-staff full-time legal departments are working as we speak on trying to figure out how to meld these new regulations with the OPMA rules because they don't necessarily always conform to one another for the various situations that we're in. So if you've got questions at any time, ask me, but we'll start with right now in phase 2. They have not come out with guidance specific to government public meetings. So what they've told us to use is a combination of the OPMA rules as they are currently in the modified proclamations and the business meeting miscellaneous venues COVID requirements. So these are just some of the highlights. That COVID requirement document is several pages long. I picked out some of the highlights of the things that we would have to do. The occupancy in each room area is limited to 25% capacity. They want us to stagger the people coming in and people leaving. They don't want any gathering in groups. Of course, we have to adjust seating so that there's a minimum of 6 feet. Everyone has to wear a face covering at all times. There's got to be cleaning of high touch areas frequently. The meeting room itself has to be sanitized between uses. There's some requirements that I don't know a whole lot about, but requirements for the ventilation systems in the building, whatever a MERV 3 filter system. We have to, when possible, keep windows and doors open and use fans to improve ventilation. And then there has to be at least one COVID-19 program supervisor present at each location during the event to basically monitor, like the room monitor for any violations of the COVID rules. And so we have to have a plan in place that incorporates these rules with the OPMA rules before we can have any meeting to do that. And fortunately, we have other cities that have full attorney staffs that are working on those things. So fortunately, Ree and I do not have to figure that out because apparently it's being difficult. So as far as those rules, then we come into the OPMA requirements that we also have to find. And some of these things I just found out last week in doing my research. So as soon as we have an in-person element to our meeting, we can no longer have the public attend only by virtual means. We have to provide a in-person space for the public to attend. And that location has to be either the primary location or an overflow physical location that still provides the ability for everyone attending to hear each other at the same time. So we would also have to have one of those COVID supervisors at whatever overflow location there was. If at any time one of those COVID supervisors sees anybody violating, then the meeting itself has to stop. It can either, you have a choice of bringing everybody into compliance, recessing it, completely stopping it. You can recess it until you can get back to your separate places and get back online and start the meeting completely virtual. Anyway, there's various options there. It's just, they're real strict about, got to shut it down if everybody's not in compliance of both the COVID rules and the OPMA rules. And we have to provide for public participation So if we do have that overflow area, there has to be the same ability for the public to participate in the overflow location as there is in the primary location. So anyway, those things are all part of the requirements in order to meet the current OPMA guidance or requirements for the proclamation the way it is standing right now. So here are some of the challenges that we encounter when we're looking at melding these two sets of rules together. Our current capacity of the council chambers at 25% would be 18 people. However, if we're cutting it down to where we have 6-foot distance and you're all in a seating environment where you see each other like we normally do in the meeting, we kind of went in last week and did some shuffling of the tables in the room, and we're trying some different audio video equipment, and we could come up with that we could have 8 meeting participants at a time with the current equipment that we have, provided everybody speaks projecting their voice, because you'll all be required to have masks on the whole time. That puts us in a position of being required to have that overflow space. So one of the challenges is finding where that other overflow space would be that also meets all of those requirements. Currently, the fire department would typically, in any other year, the fire department space would be where we would use for overflow, or if we're going to have an extra large meeting or something of that nature. Because of their continuous contact with COVID positive people, the fire department is shut down to anybody other than fire department staff. So that's not an option. So we'll need to look at something other than the fire department for that. And audiovisual challenges, as I said, our current audio system, when we discovered when we first started going to Zoom, it does not integrate with Zoom or any virtual meetings at all. It causes audio interference. So we have to be able to have some sort of meeting speaker system that will catch all of the volume, all of the speakers, without using the overhead integrated speaker system that we currently have. So if you guys have thoughts on that kind of thing, we have purchased what it's called an owl, a meeting owl, if any of you have seen that. So we've purchased the meeting owl and we're experimenting with that. Right now, it looks like that may be possible once we get the other challenges taken care of. We're restricted. That's what restricted us to having only 8 participants in the meeting in that room, because the distance, there's only so much distance that we can get away from that centralized owl product for everybody to be able to still hear, especially with wearing masks. So, but we've been playing with that, and we'll continue while we're looking at the different things to be able to merge all of these rules. We'll continue playing with that and probably using it for some of the city meetings that are not OPMA meetings, so that we can get a good feel of how that's going to work and all of that. It's a pretty good product, and I was pleased with it. But we haven't really had much opportunity yet to put it into practice. So another thing would be Sanitation, the COVID compliance and staffing challenges. The rooms need to be sanitized between each meeting. If the public is commenting, we would have like we normally have that podium area, we'd have to take the time in the meeting to then sanitize that in between each speaker. The COVID supervisor would be required to stop the meeting. I think that's kind of redundant, I already said. One thing we'd have to decide as a council and as a group is how are we going to enforce the COVID rules? Because as soon as somebody comes in without a mask, it shuts down the meeting. But yet there's a lot of instances where people don't wear masks, but they didn't give us the flexibility of that in their guidance rules. So there's just some uncharted territory that hopefully these larger cities with their legal teams are going to be able to work out for us. We currently have a self-health assessment that everybody that comes into City Hall does have to do. We would have to have somebody ensuring that those assessments are being taken by everybody that comes in. And the main reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because of the consequences involved with what happens if one of our meetings is in violation of the OPMA. Because it can really impact everything that you guys are doing. You guys are doing a lot of really, really good work for the city. And just having one meeting challenged that something like a grant application was approved, or funding agreements or contracts, those things, aside from the fact that there's a monetary penalty for each member present, those contracts and that funding and all of those agreements would be void. And so that could impact capital projects that we have going and stuff like that. So sometimes the rules seem extremely cumbersome and difficult to follow, and we may not all necessarily agree with them. But these are the reasons why we have to try and figure it out, or we have to stay virtual until we do figure it out. Rules change. The rules change constantly. As you guys know, I'm sure they've been changing throughout this whole past year. And so the Washington municipal clerks are staying on top of any rule changes, and believe me, every possible question as to what we can or cannot do is being asked of the Attorney General's office and everybody's legal departments. So we miss you guys too. We really want to get back at it, but we want to be able to do it in a way that doesn't put any of our projects at risk. So thank you. Are there any questions? Councilmember Trope?
I would suggest at this point, we don't even consider this coming back. I mean, it just seems ridiculous to increase the risk. It's not like we get a lot of public in our meetings when we're on site. I just don't think we need the risk right now. I think we can wait for somebody else to try this on.
And I would say that I have heard from multiple other agencies. The city of Walla Walla has decided that they are not going to attempt this. They may revisit it in 30 to 60 days, depending on what goes on. But at this time, they've decided not to. City of West Richland has decided not to. City of Kennewick is not discussing it yet. Pasco, I've not heard that they're discussing it yet. I just want to make sure you guys know that it's, you know, it's not a want of yours that I'm unaware of or that I'm ignoring. It's just, these are the risks and these are the challenges. So, Councilmember Selby.
I think that, well, I agree with Councilmember Trope that it's going to take a fair amount of expense to try and do meetings under this. And of all the things that we have to spend money on, I think this should be like the last priority, because we're not doing the kinds of meetings that have that much benefit of being in person. I mean, it has a benefit, but I think there are other types of meetings that have a lot more benefit. So I do not think we should push this at all. When the rules say we can do it without all these restrictions, then I think we should come back.
Councilmember Bobbitt?
Yes. Too many question marks, because what about the fact that if you have a medical reason not to wear a mask, does that, and as a public member, does that kind of take you away from being able to make public comment? Or even as a council member, if you have a medical reason not to wear a mask, does that just totally obliterate any ability to make any actions in a public meeting? Too many question marks. I think what everyone else has been saying, just continue on with the Zoom.
I agree with that. That's a really good question. And the guidance just does not provide any rule exceptions for that. So
yeah, it's a big gray area. What's a requirement? What's a guideline?
Exactly. Councilmember Peterson.
Well, I'm relieved. I didn't know how we were going to handle those large crowds that show up at our council meeting. So this is a great relief. Thank you.
I have to agree. And isn't that funny that we have to prepare for the potential, regardless of whether there's really a risk of it happening or not?
All right, sounds like we've got a plan, sticking to Zoom for a while. Any other questions or comments for either Mike or Lisa regarding COVID? All right, thank you both. Appreciate all that work on keeping us on the straight and narrow. Okay, so next on the agenda is public hearings, but we do not have any tonight. So we're going to move on to action items. There's only one item, and it's a Department of Ecology loan agreement, and Mr. Carlton's going to report on that.
Yes, Lisa, if you could bring up the sheet on the Southwest Sewer funding. So now that we're moving forward with the construction phase on the Southwest Sewer project, the Department of Ecology is wanting us to finalize the agreement on the loans and grants which they are committed to us. Back in 2020, Department of Ecology gave an initial offering of $7 million to fund this project. That was a complete loan with no grant. They did have a component of the original design engineering that has a 50% grant, which is included in this agreement and was included in the initial $7 million offer. Now they're asking us to have a resolution of approval by council approving the portion of the funding that they're going to provide for this project. So on this sheet, I've kind of broken down where we are at. on the project so far. The top is the cost, and the bottom part's the funding. You can see we have the construction, which council approved. Apollo Incorporated on January 12th for $7.360 million. As on that same meeting, council approved $120,000 for the lift station pumps. And as part of our agreement with USDA, which is a large component of our funding, they require us to have a 10% contingency on the project. That's the $748,000. Just to go through the additional costs, we have engineering of design of $520,000, $241,600 of that is grant from Department of Ecology, and Department of Ecology, as part of their funding portion, will be providing the $590,700 in construction engineering. Additional costs associated with the project are interim financing, which was a component required by USDA. That before we get in, I'll get into the ordering of their funding sources in just a moment, but they require us to have that to fund any of the money that they are providing. So their loan portion of $2.8 million will require interim financing. There's some bond counsel and some legal services costs as well, for a total expenditure of $9.5 million. Now the funding sources, we've talked about this previously, and this is in order of when the funding has to occur. So right now we're 100% funded on the project, and it's broken down into those components. The city, we're required by USDA to provide $516,000 of funding out of our own reserves. That's what they call skin in the game. The port is $200,000, which is 100% grant. We have the DOE, the design is $483,000, $483,000 for the design, which is 50% forgivable. We have the DOE construction of 500, or the construction engineering, sorry, is 590,700, and the DOE loan was $1.549 million. That $1.5 million was a recent occurrence. We could not get additional funding from USDA to complete the project. The amounts in the USDA loan and grant were the amounts that were initially committed from USDA at the time that we had the 30% engineering. And if you recall, there was considerable cost increases between the 30% and the 90%, and before it went to construction approval. So we had to fill a gap. And because we had the $7 million commitment from Department of Ecology, we included the $1.549 million from the Department of Ecology in a low interest loan, which is, I believe, at 1% for 20 years. The last two components are the USDA loan and then the grant portion for the USDA. And that is exactly in the order in which we need to spend the funds. Department of Ecology is asking us to prepare a resolution to authorize the city administrator to sign the agreement based on their three components, which are the DOE design and the construction engineering and the loan. One thing I didn't realize until tonight is that in that resolution, I believe it states that it just states the $2.1 million, which is the construction engineering and the loan, but they have included the design portion, which was previously approved, but they've included that in their document. So the actual amount that Mike will need to sign for is $2.623 million. We'll need to adjust that. I don't know what we need to do there, Lisa.
if they approve the resolution with that modification, I will modify the resolution before I send it
Okay.
out for signatures.
Yeah, because the document they require is the 2.623 million.
Okay, if you send me the exact figure, or is that the exact figure?
No, I'll send it. It's actually $2.623, $681.
Okay,
It's just those two amounts plus the 483,200. Because it was included in that original funding package of $7 million, they're including it in the total commitment.
All right, so we're going to go through council members for any questions. Are you done, Mr. Carlton?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I have a tendency of jumping the gun on you. Okay, let's go through council members. So Mr. Bobbitt, any questions or comments?
No.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson,
One kind of unrelated, Brian, when is the construction, if this is approved, when would this construction begin? This
Mike,
construction?
maybe you
Yeah.
can.
I can answer that. So we already have a contract with Apollo. They already have equipment on site right now. They're having the meetings with the Mike and Craig tomorrow, and they're ready to get going. So I would expect you'll probably see major dirt turning in 3 weeks. Right now, everything is getting mobilized out there.
Thank you.
Nyhagen,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Selby,
I'm so excited for this project. About when do you think it will be done?
Yeah. So as far as when it'll be done, I think there'll be remnants of this going into early next year. I think the line itself will be done like this summer into fall. But what's going to take a lot of time is all the parts in the lift station building itself and the mechanical equipment and all that. So I think there'll be some remnants of it wrapping up this time next year, but it should be most of it should be done by the end of the year.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Sherman,
No questions.
Mr. Trope.
No questions.
All right. If anyone does have any additional questions or comments, please use the button to raise your hand. Otherwise, is there a motion? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Ms. Selby raised her hand. Oh, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
I would like to move to adopt resolution number 21-009, which authorizes the city administrator to sign funding agreement for $2,623,681 with the Department of Ecology for the Southwest Sewer Project.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? Other than being very impressed with Ms. Selby's addition real quick. All right, let's vote it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed.
And that
Okay,
was
thank you.
totally Ms. Nysel.
None of us were going to do that until then.
All right. So there's no administrative reports tonight. There are reports in the packet for your review for informational reports. So please take a look at those. Otherwise, is there any other business for good of the order? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. So if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 8:34 p.m.
Good seeing everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.